Last week was the first of my installment in this series called Conversations about Israel and Jewish Identity. And if I could have added more to that title, it would have been in the wake of October 7th and the aftermath. But I think that's understood. This is probably the biggest seismic shift that the Jewish people worldwide has experienced in our lifetimes, right? My grandparents who have passed away, who went through the Holocaust, it's another story. But in my lifetime, this is the big seismic shift. And we don't know where it's going to land in terms of us as a Jewish community. What happens next? Where do we go? So what we do is we process, we talk about it. We talk about what's happening, and we have ideas, we formulate them, we formulate strategies and what have you to try to encounter the changing world around us and strengthen ourselves. And someone's asking, yes, it will be recorded. This session is being recorded right now. The last week's session, as I said, was the first installment, and it was called The Future of American Jewry. Very much what I'm talking about right now as an introduction, the future of American Jewry. Where will we be? And we had a wonderful guest, Zoe Burston from Stand With Us. I forget the exact title, but an anti-Semitism division of Stand With Us. That is on YouTube right now. If anyone missed it and wants to revisit that session, they're welcome to go to our Facebook page, Neveh Shalom, or our YouTube channel, to see that. It's about an hour long. So today, I don't have a guest. I tried to find one, and I had a couple that were very, very good, but we couldn't make it happen in this short amount of time. We hope to have them back in separate in other installments. And but I think this works well for today. Today's topic is friends, betrayal, and abandonment. And I will share a few things from my experience. I want to share something from one of the guests that I would have brought on, and I'll explore some of those ideas. And then I want to hear from you. This has been a very revealing period of time for many of us. Not necessarily happy, but a revealing one. So we have seen with October 7th massacre, right? We I don't know about you, but I always knew all my life that there was anti-Semitism in the world. We would see it in little windows and little moments, little exchanges with people, right? We would see it over there sometimes. We'd see it in some way, in some subtle ways. Oh, did you hear what they said? That news coverage wasn't okay. Now things changed dramatically, and they're affecting some of us in the sense that people in our inner circle, a little close to us and inner circle, we're like, oh, they think this way. Oh, they think that way. Oh, they think this of me. Oh, they hate this about me. Oh, they're not there for me. And one of the people that I wanted to have today, he's an Emmy Award winning actor, and he's a Jewish advocate. And his bio is much longer than what I just said, but I will leave it at that. His name is Yuval David. He's an American Israeli, and he put out. He's been on social media quite a bit in general, but certainly since October 7th, and he released this letter to his friends. It's a message to my friends, and I want to share that with you, and then we will talk a little after that.
This is a message to my friends, possibly my former friends. We shared milestones, we raised glasses in celebration, we found solace in our unity. You attended parties in my home, sat at my dinner table. We broke bread together. You came to my film screenings and plays. You were my +1 at fabulous events. You did all of this with me. A Jewish, Israeli, American. And when you faced challenges, when your relatives were ill and dying, when life's hardships were at your doorstep, when your community and people were attacked, I was there for you, calling you regularly, checking in, supporting you, marching with you, sitting in the trauma with you. Yet when the sirens of conflict sounded, when the genocidal terrorists attacked the Jewish people in Israel, your silence became a deafening roar of indifference. When anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic threats, attacks, and violence happens around the world, even in our own cities, where are you? Where are you when the outcry for justice needs to be echoed, when the battle for human rights is about the rights and lives of Jews, when propaganda and hate speech and violence needs to be challenged? Too many non-Jewish friends reacted without reaction, with silence. Silence is complicity. Some of you turned your backs on me, on us, or revealed you never really had our backs to begin with, and others became hypocrites, speaking out, taking action against Jews, against democracy, against human rights, against justice, for the freedoms you appreciate but apparently believe Jews do not deserve those freedoms and rights to life. We are facing the most significant attack the Jewish people have ever seen during my lifetime. It is traumatizing, a time when friends are needed. Friendship is not a fair-weather journey. It demands sensitivity, courage, confrontation, uncomfortable truths, support, and above all, integrity. I stand amongst the turmoils of war, heartbroken but resolute, calling for truth to be made known. This message might be a farewell to the bonds broken by betrayal, yet it is also a plea for you to awaken to the cries of humanity. May your conscience guide you back to the path of true allyship, of truth, of justice against terror. Otherwise, we are done. And maybe, not only are you a former friend, maybe you were never really a friend to begin with.
Powerful piece, in my view. And I spoke to him directly, and this is very, he's an actor, but he's speaking his experience. And I think from people that I've encountered in my life at the last few weeks in the congregation community and beyond, from my own life, what he said rings true for many of us. And I wanted to talk about some of those issues. And also, by the way, Yuval has been very active on social media and has received a great amount of hate speech. He has spoken to the FBI about this, and it has to do with algorithms. And the more people here visit his Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, what have you, it changes the algorithm. So I encourage you to do that. His name is Yuval David, and we can pass that along in a moment. So I wanted to speak as well about my own experiences. And with the assumption it's going to resonate with some of you and discuss some of those. When these things happen, we have these moments of realizing what our friends or people in our circles think, and they're disconcerting. How do we feel about it? How many chances do you give? How much do you engage with that person to try to change their mind or convince them, or do you not? What's the limit? When do we decide that that's it? If it's our choice. And look, for me, I subscribe to a position that rock star David Lee Roth has expressed from Van Halen, and he said, with anti-Semitism, you don't get 3 tries with me. It's 1 try, and that's it. He might have phrased it a little more colorfully than I did, but that's his point. So October 7th, we're seeing this. I'm seeing this, and many of us are going, whatever pain we're feeling, we're also thinking, everyone sees the same thing I see, right? So I have a friend, first I'll mention I know it's hard to believe, but I had a barber once, when I lived in Hamilton outside of Toronto. And he owned the barber store. And he's a Facebook friend. We're not close, we never were, but he's a Facebook friend. October 7th happened. 2 days later, October 9th, he reaches out to me and writes, Eyal, murder is wrong and terrorism is wrong, but let's face it, armies are just better funded terrorists, and there are no war crimes. War is the crime. My heart aches for the victims and their loved ones on both sides of the battle. You're a good man. I hope you and your family are doing well. And my spidey senses were up. I said, there's one try for anti-Semitism. I didn't think that crossed the line. I understood that I was upset with that because he's all mattering it, right? All sides. We're all victims. This is 2 days later. 2 days after the most heinous atrocities that I would put to you that anyone has seen in their lifetimes of people that we know, Jewish or not Jewish. I can't imagine that video footage and images would be this horrific. November 1st, I didn't write back to him, by the way. November 1st, he reaches out again. And I had written something about anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism and how whatever happens, whatever nuance you might think about what anti-Zionism might mean, in reality, in practice, we see the effects of there are anti-Semitic incidents that happen all around the world, and they're violent. So he wrote to me November 1st. By the way, he's not Jewish, he's not Muslim, he's not Arab, just a guy. It's not anti-Semitism, he tells me. It's not anti-Semitism to not want a well-funded army conducting murderous offensives, genocide against the civilian population, the same way we don't want Hamas waging war against civilians. I also don't think that being Jewish is synonymous with being a Zionist, as you've stated in a recent post. When did you become a propagandist, Eyal? And that's when I deleted him. And I was like, okay, crossed lines left and right. He is going to tell me, and I bet you, I'm saying this personally, but I'm saying it because I think it's going to, that you've been in this place, many of you have. Someone who is not Jewish is coming to me, who is Jewish and have been for over 50 years. And you're going to tell me what anti-Semitism is and isn't? Also, why? Why are you going to do that? Why is this person writing? Why did he write to me on October 9th? Why did he feel the need to reach out when Jews have been attacked in the most gruesome way and say something that isn't supportive and say something that is corrective about how I'm thinking? Why? The motive is very, very upsetting to me, right? It doesn't make any sense. It does when you understand what's really motivating someone, right? So the fact that I see, right? We tell people to speak their truths, and you can't tell someone else what their identity is. My attachment to the land of Israel, ancestral land of, homeland of the Jewish people, from the stories of the Bible to the prayers that we recite to my daily life, and in many ways is part of my Judaism. For someone coming up to me and telling me, you're being political, you're being a propagandist, flush. So someone writes, Cantor, he is not a friend. No, he is not. And he is out of my life. But I'm going to tell you another person. And this one is a closer person than my barber, who I don't go to for various reasons anymore. So there was a musician friend in Hamilton who my wife and I met in 2009 when we first moved to Hamilton. Very nice, very friendly, all that stuff, right? Very lovely in so many ways. She reached out to me on October 13th and wrote the following. Sorry. This household is sick over this situation. Okay, by the way, in context, this is just under a week. Okay, so hold on, I have a cat going absolutely bonkers behind me. All right, I don't know if the look did it. So she writes to me 6 days later, this household is sick over this situation. My son works for a Palestinian woman who is getting death threats, so her business is shut. She's terrified. She isn't Hamas. The news that Israel is giving the civilians in Gaza 24 hours to move to the Egyptian border isn't enough time, as humanitarian groups are scrambling to save these people. I'm sorry if I'm offending you, but those poor people are to be slaughtered if they can't get to the border fast enough. Some are in hospitals or elderly. I try to put myself in their position. It's terrifying what's going to unfold. It's just all wrong, and there will never be peace there. The Palestinians want Gaza as their own. Why does Israel have to have it? Just like Russia doesn't need Ukrainian land. When is it enough? I'm so sorry, but there are many people who feel the pain of the people killed in Israel last week, but it's not going to end. The vicious groups like Hamas that rise up out of anger are not going away. It's just also terrifying. So, thresholds. How much leeway do we give? Do we engage? My answer to that was to delete her from my life entirely, immediately, and not explain. I blocked her from, my social media, and I didn't, I said nothing, explained nothing. I understand that. Sorry if I'm offending you. You are offending me. I am very offended, and I'm not interested in continuing this friendship as much as we had a nice one. I mean, there's so much wrong with this. There's so much. Where to begin? If your household is sick over it and you hate what you've seen, why didn't you write me on day one about the Jews that were killed and raped? About the I'm not going to go to the gruesome parts. Why didn't you write on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4? Why not? Why didn't you express the same, even a fraction of this outrage? It's only expressed in the context of saying, I also care for that side a little bit. But your outrage, her outrage, is entirely about what could happen with Palestinians, and only that side. And why does the Hamas, why did Hamas do what they did, as awful as they may be in her mind? Because they're angry. They're angry at us, which indicates there's a justification, right? And she also has her facts wrong. All they want is Gaza. Why does Israel have to have it? Israel doesn't want Gaza. Israel doesn't own it. So there's I could have gone, one could go with the side of education. You have this wrong. You have that wrong. Okay. Now, I don't want to be critical. I love my wife, and I want to underline that she is friends with this person too. And she tried a different approach. And I respect that because she wanted to give this person a chance, and she had different correspondence. And I want to talk about that. Okay. And then we'll open it up. So to me, this person wrote 6 days after the horrific massacre. To my wife, she wrote October 9th, 2 days, same day that other gentleman wrote to me, the barber. And she writes, many are thinking Hamas, to my wife, many are thinking Hamas is representing all of Palestine, which is unfortunate. I believe in safety to all the Jewish and Palestinian people. The radical extremists are the problem in all religions and governments. I only wish for peace in that part of the world. Enough bloodshed on either side. I hope this doesn't offend you guys. Keep well. And understandably, my wife didn't feel that crossed, it offended her, right? But it didn't cross certain lines. But you know, I'm not another person, and I can't tell that other person what to do. The same way, whatever we discuss here, what I want to have this discussion and not tell you here, the right answer is this, and you did the wrong thing. That's not my point. It's just grappling with this and recognizing that we have different ways of and different lines, and what is that line? But processing what the person is saying and why, and what is okay with that, what's not okay with that. In this situation, 2 days later, all bad. Violence happens. Radicals on both sides. What? Condemn this. This just happened. This just happened. It was so awful. It's in front of you, and you don't say a word about that. And my wife, in just in terms of points, tried to reach and say, look, we are devastated. This is how we feel. I want you to know we are devastated. We have family there. It's another point. Okay, there's this personal connection, and there was also, she also mentioned, I was a little bothered by how you wrote that message. I'm struggling with the fact that instead of asking if we're okay, the first comments you make is raising concerns about the Palestinians and seemingly suggesting that we don't care. So my wife did a great job with that, right? If you're going to take that track, she's trying to respect the friendship and deal with some of these issues, but not shy away from some of them, right? We are devastated. We have family. I don't like the way you phrased that, and here's why. Then she tries to educate her a little bit, saying that what I said about Gaza, well, it's not, what she said about Gaza was completely wrong, and my wife addresses that. My wife tries to tell her about how students feel on campuses and around the world, how we feel attacked in so many ways, and we are being harassed in so many ways. And Australians, and there was the riots there, the demonstrations where they're saying "gas the Jews" and other things to do to Jews, and she also says, by the way, I don't have that in this part. She also says, by the way, I follow, I like Jewish Voices for Peace. So my wife tries to educate her on what JVP is, and that they're a fringe group that is not really associated with Jewish communities anywhere. And is actually viewed as a hate group, by a dangerous group by so many. Someone who's not Jewish reaching out and telling us as Jews, here's what a good Jew is. A good Jew is part of this organization that I follow, and I'm not a Jew, I'm not an expert on this, but I recognize them as good Jews. Last bit of this exchange, and then we'll talk a bit. Her response was, Michelle, how was I to know that you have family directly impacted by this horrific situation? Oh. Right? So there's a personal thing, but the point is, and you have me all wrong. I care more than you'll ever know. I go to bed thinking of everyone impacted by this and wake up thinking about it. I keep asking myself, what could possibly drive any human to commit such brutal attacks? How does it ever get to that? It's a messed up world. And she says, I condemn the attacks on innocent people right from the moment I heard about it. Not to us. And I pray every night that peace will eventually come. And I was upset this morning hearing that some hostages died in the bombing of Gaza. I don't know what she's talking about. This is a world issue now. And then after that, she unfriended my wife, and the other way. So this wasn't just about therapy for me to unload on you and explain what we've gone through. And there's more, right? There are people also who've been very, very quiet, who haven't written to us. And that's something that Yuval David was talking about, where people are complicit in their silence. And what they're not saying is telling us a lot. Telling us a lot. And So with this, as you can see, there are different ways to handle this. And I know friends who've gone through this and they've tried that route of engaging with friends and trying to educate or inform them in some way. I know people who have family that are these people, meaning they have family, cousins, perhaps even siblings, but the ones I know are relatives that are cousins that that are yelling "Free Palestine" and basically cheering on Hamas. Right? What do you do in a situation like that? So I would like to turn it to some of you. I don't know if I can take everybody. Oh, I see some comments here before we turn it to. Yes, someone points out, because October 13th, I mentioned that day. Someone points out that was the day that many Jews had to stay home, and some schools and places were closed because there was a call to globalize that intifada and to attack Jews or something along those lines. So that's interesting that it would come on those days, that day. Yes. Let me look again at some comments here. It's difficult when the prevailing cultural narrative has been to listen to minorities. Okay, so yes, Casey Harg says it's difficult when the prevailing cultural narrative, certainly in North America right now, has been to listen to minorities and accept when they say something is offensive to them or racist. When we say something is anti-Semitic, we get attacked as trying to silence them. I agree. But before going to some of those issues, I do want to ask you and see if you please raise your hand instead of all chiming in. If you've been through something like this, okay, where friends, what's your threshold? What is your threshold? When is it over? Rick, do you have your hand up? Rick, okay, Rosenblum.
Yes, thank you very much. So I take a little bit of a different approach. I'm not as involved religiously as you are or as deep as you are. I'm more in the business community. It's much different. But because of my background, I try to, maybe it's stupid that I do this. I try to logically, I spend hours reading about this, trying to educate myself to see if the Jews are in the wrong. They're not. But I try to educate people. I do the whole thing. Going back 3,000 years, 1917, the Balfour Declaration, the United Kingdom saying, turning over to the UN in 47, 45% split, Israel should exist, et cetera, et cetera. Every time Israel has gone to the mat in 67, which was right after my bar mitzvah at Neveh Shalom, by the way, we all sat around and we had little flags. We were worried they were going to go away. 6-day war on the pulpit. I remember that. But remember the 3 no's from the Arab League? No peace, no negotiations. And so I explained to them that every time the Jews have tried to, 2000, 2008, it's been 4 or 5 times, agree with the PLO, so to speak, to make peace. They turn them away. But I do think we are going to lose this battle. Not physically lose this battle, but we're just in a tough spot. And you take so long to explain. There's so many details. And these are intelligent people I deal with in the business community, but it's just very difficult when you've got what you said, the minority, the oppressed. I've got one of my sons went to Stanford. His roommate, a smart guy, was living with me for a while. He mentioned one time that the Jews treat the Palestinians like, I don't know what the word he was, cattle, the open air prison, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of takes you back. But, we're in a tough spot because they're the underdogs, if you will. We have overwhelming power. And this idea of proportionality is ridiculous. If the Jews killed 1,400 people, should they just stop there and say, okay, we're done? It's ridiculous to even talk about that. So I'm very supportive of Israel, but it is very difficult.
Thank you, Rick. Let me ask you, the people that you've tried to educate, let's simplify what the messaging is. What's your batting average? That people turn around and try to keep it short answer. What's your batting average? And don't do it in actual batting average. Do it as a 50-50. Is it 60, in percentage? What would you say? How many?
Good. It's good. I'd like to just give you a number. And I'm a CPA, by the way. But I don't know because they don't comment on it, but they seem to soak it in. And progress is slow.
So probably close to 0% turn themselves around publicly. They might, right? So that's not nothing. I do want to, in terms of what Rick said, and Rick, if you can mute yourself, if after we're done, if we can mute ourselves, and appreciate it. What one thing to, I think, keep in mind is, and something that Rick addressed towards the end as well, is like, we're not going to win this thing. There's certain people where you'll never win them over. And it's not reason, it's not logic that has put them there in that other position to begin with. It's a belief system of some sort. And when you have belief, it's not reason that transforms the that belief system. It just does not. So, but there are people who are not at that extreme, who have not decided to vote this or to vote that, or to, on this, in this case, to be pro Hamas. And I think, I suspect many of you know that it's like amazing to watch people who are pro-Palestinians conflate every single action by any Palestinian group as being the Palestinians, and instead of going, wait, Palestinian Authority might not agree with this, and there's other segments. No, it's all the same thing. Okay. So for those people, there's not much you can do. But there are people in the middle who we don't hear about. We have to, the kids on campuses are being attacked by people who may be a minority, but they're attacked, right? So you have to deal with the threat that's in front of you, to deal with the voices that are shouting at you. But there are voices that are silent. I'm not talking about our friends, but people out there who it's worthwhile getting our point across, right? I don't say let's be quiet and not be on social media, not try to reach out to friends, but I'm trying to get to, when someone says something that is like this, like what I've described here, what is your threshold for, okay, I'm done now? How much do you engage? What's that thing? Laura Fendel.
There we go. We have a daughter and son-in-law who's a rabbi, and 4 grandchildren. We have 2 great nieces. One made Aliyah, and a great nephew who's in the army. He made Aliyah. And our kids live in Jerusalem. And my daughter sent a letter to a lot of people, and I sent it to friends and family. And people, about 70 people contacted us. How is your family? What's happening? How are you? And I have a cousin, a second cousin that I grew up with. We lost touch with each other for decades, and we reconnected about 2 years ago. She's had a very virtuous life. She converted to Christianity and moved to the East Coast. And she wrote my daughter, after this beautiful, humble, sensitive letter that Eliza had written, how they are feeling. And this cousin sent an article, and it was left of left. And it upset them. It upset my 2 older grandchildren and their parents. And there was an exchange between Eliza and this woman. And Eliza did educate. She said, I don't know if you realize what this organization is that wrote this letter, this article. And my cousins wrote back and said, I'm sorry, because she didn't respond to the letter or how Eliza was feeling, or her friends. And one of Eliza's friends, who she's worked with for 6 years, is Rachel Goldman, the one whose son, Hirsch, his arm was blown off and he was taken hostage. And Eliza wrote to her and said, this is not acceptable. Our hearts are bleeding and we can't dig the graves fast enough. And we can't bury these people fast enough. And my cousin CC'd me because she apologized. She said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause you pain. And I didn't respond. And about a week went by and she wrote me and she said, I hope you'll talk to me. And I waited a week and then I wrote her back and I said, I don't know if I said, I don't think I can talk to you about this war. Yeah. And I said, you hurt my family, which is her family, and she doesn't know them. I said, you hurt them deeply. And I said a few more things, but she said she was sorry. And that means a lot to me. And I did say that.
Okay.
But I don't know if I can have a relationship.
So this is right. Laura, thank you for sharing. And this is the thing, right? Where I said there was a seismic shift in the Jewish community, but this is also part of it in our personal lives. The idea that you have a friend, acquaintance, part of your life, a social, someone part of your social world. So I say friend, all the various degrees of that, who was this before, let's say was this close to you before October 7th, and something like that, well, it's a little further now, if at all, right? But it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. I don't mean with everybody, right? But with some people like that, like what you described, how can you go back, right? Now, this is another point is self-respect, right? How many, if I'm proud of myself, I don't want people to walk all over me. So the same way you don't want someone taking advantage of you in different areas of your life, you have to stand up for yourself, self-advocate in some ways, and so that these things don't happen, and you have a sense of self-pride, and you're respected, and you can, move on in life in many ways, not be taken advantage of. It's the same sort of thing as in terms of friendship, in terms of life. You want to be able to carry yourself off in a way that you can look in the mirror and go, I like what I see here. I handled myself well here. And I'm not letting someone who is hurtful to me or has said hurtful things to me, continue the same way as before, even though it pains me that we have this investment of years and years with each other, this right, these bonds that I thought, and this is perhaps another point or another layer to it is, before I get to that, I want to point out Cheryl Livness says, I think you have to be thoughtful about who you try to educate. This is on the point that we were talking about before. Those who have made up their mind are a waste of time. We need to spend our time on those who are willing to listen. And there's a number of strategies that might work. The trick is identifying who that person is, where that moment is. So regarding what Laura was saying and what I was just talking about just now, do you have situations where you were, well, I think that is the case already, but I'm asking anyway, were you shocked, disappointed in your friends? Was it that you were disappointed in your friends and shocked, or also the number of them? Okay, yes, I'm going to turn to Marnie Horesh.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I have. So my father fought in the 6-Day War. He was an immigrant to Israel from Iraq. So I've sort of like grown up with that voice in my head and have also found myself in very liberal circles. And I have found that a lot of my Jewish friends are either silent or speaking languages I'm not understanding right now. And I actually don't want to have conversations. I just want to cut ties. And I also feel like I want to cut ties with the people who were silent and then popped up a month after this happened and said, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Not okay. I'm not okay. Oh, why? And I don't want to have a conversation with those people. The people I'm having conversations with are, I can count on one hand, my non-Jewish friends who immediately contacted me, said, how are you okay? Please educate me. I don't understand what's going on. I don't want to speak out of turn. What does this mean? A ceasefire? What do you think? Point me towards books, point me towards people. And those are the friendships that I've doubled down on. Everyone else, goodbye. That's how I'm feeling. And I don't know if I'm being too aggressive, but I don't have the bandwidth.
Thank you, Marnie, for sharing that. When I was, I don't know, 7 years old or so, I loved playing marbles, right? That was the thing, marbles. This is because I'm from 1970s. This is at that point, right? It's a very different era. Loved marbles. I had a Nestle's Quick. I remember this big container full of marbles. And I remember playing at school, and we had like a team, and we were sharing our marbles. And my sister was a year and a half younger than me. So if I was 7, let's say I was 8, I think I was 7, let's say it was 8. She was 6.5. She said to me, "Stop sharing. You'll have no marbles left." She was so smart. You share to a point, you give to a point, and also you got to self-preserve. And that's what I'm saying with Marnie. Are you being harsh? What do you owe it to yourself? We're talking about what we owe to others. What about others owing kindness and love and support to you, to me? And I don't mean, right? I think perhaps this is what you mean. You don't want to be so aware, so vigilant that you mistrust everybody, and that you give no one the chance. And I think there is great value in identifying who our friends are and making that circle smaller, but better and stronger. Smaller doesn't have to mean weaker. It can mean stronger. We're upheld with like-minded people who kind of going through the same thing and who love us. And I do want to mention, and then I'd like to take a question from or comment from Lisa Newman Exting. And that is that I have a neighbor who's not Jewish, who's just been so lovely. Just a couple of times have said the most wonderful things, and just recently was in tears. Not prompted by me, but just for what she has seen and what she knows the Jewish community is going through. It's like, goodness, if everyone could be like that, that would be great. But I'll also take the exceptional people, and that's an exceptional person. And I wish it weren't the case that they're exceptional, but they're there and they're of value. Again, it might be a smaller circle, but it needs to be a strong one. Lisa, please. And I don't know if it's pronounced Eckstein or Eckstein. Wait, you have to unmute.
Eckstein.
Eckstein.
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone.
Okay.
Well, I am a little bit in between. My daughter cut people off of Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't have that social media presence. So for me, it would be people literally contacting me by phone or by email. And I have been pretty isolated since COVID started because I have to be careful. So for me, there are certain people who have contacted me, but there's a whole group of people who I haven't heard from, but I wouldn't hear from them necessarily anyway unless we had contact. And those people are a big question mark for me because I don't know what it will mean when we discuss it. But the fact that they're silent now doesn't tell me anything. And so I guess I might be wrong and you all might disagree with me, but I think for me, I want to be careful about that. I feel a little uneasy until I find out. And I'll walk with somebody and I'll find out. But otherwise, I I think the jury is out for some of these people because that's not the pattern that we've had. I think it is also different because I think this is a terribly gross generalization, but I think as Jews, we are more openly expressive than the more waspy culture.
Oh, interesting.
And I think we have to be careful, especially in Portland, Oregon, which is not like New York City or a big Jewish center, in what we expect of people and how we expect them to express themselves. So I don't know if that means I'm wishy-washy. My daughter's in Philadelphia. She's way more direct about it. But for the people who haven't spoken, I guess I want to give them a chance, although I have to say, when I think of them, I feel certain anxiety, but I'm willing to wait and see.
Thank you, Lisa. This is, and David Stein agrees with you that it says context means a lot and silence doesn't necessarily indicate ill intent. I hear that, and I recognize that as being true. That being said, your anxiety that you're talking about, I'm there. I'm a little more in that pocket where I'm like, that person is a little quiet, and also does it fit regarding context? Is that silence? Does that fit their normal? We know each other's patterns. Does this person talk more? Are they quick to talk about issues in general about that? And that if it had not been this, would they have been speaking up? And you kind of have that feeling. And if it's different, in particular, your that anxiety moment, I go, oh, wait a minute. Now that being said, or to speak to that point a bit more, there are plenty of times where I have that doubt, okay, and even before October 7th, even October 7th, where especially in certain situations where we might be talking a bit more about Israel and Palestinian things and issues and whatever, my radar's up. I give the person the benefit of the doubt. My mind is working. I'm using my radar, but I will. My jury is not out. I have my thoughts, but I haven't, to use that metaphor, the gavel hasn't been struck, and I'm not passing judgment. I'm like, I know where I think I'm right, but I'm not going to act on that until I know. And like with these people that I indicated, I showed it in terms of my life, these couple of exchanges, like there was that barber, right, where his first comment told me my radar was up at that moment. It's like, oh, I think I understand exactly where this is going. I hope he's wise enough not to continue this. And he didn't. He did continue that. And that told me, so the jury was being formulated, but the gavel struck at the, when it was super clear. Looking to see if I think we have time for maybe one more, but I will see if there's anything here that quickly in the chat that I might want to pick up on. Someone says, I no longer consider, Sherry Horowitz, I no longer consider the world civilized when tens of thousands of people are protesting in support of Hamas Palestinians. I consider every single one of these protesters my enemy. No second chances. Great point. I want to leave that for another session. Today I want to be more about our personal interactions with people in that context. But in that context, Sherry, I do think that, hey, the people, the person over there that I'm not hearing from, or who has posted this or that on social media, they're echoing some of those things that we hear, and the same kind of, the same values that we're hearing at these protests. And that's sort of like, oh, you're really with them. It's been, so let me just see. Yes, Nicole Frisch. And I think that'll be the last one, and then I will conclude. So Nicole.
Thank you. I think, one of the things that I would share, that's my husband. Thanks, Casey. I run in a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion circles. Yeah. And I used to do that work. And one of the reasons I stopped professionally doing that work is because I really felt like the Jewish experience was not acknowledged or valued. And it's just been incredibly disappointing over the last few weeks, seeing people who I have known for decades who either do that work or are just really passionate about it, expressing opinions that are deeply flawed, incredibly misinformed. And there have been a few where I do feel like I have a trusted relationship where I have reached out to them. One of them verbally attacked me, which was incredibly difficult. And the other one blocked me.
Wow.
And so, what I went off social media once the actual photos started emerging after the initial attack because I just couldn't handle it. And I have 3 non-Jewish friends who I have spoken to about the war. And otherwise, I don't talk about it with anyone who's not Jewish because I don't feel safe having that conversation. And I don't even feel safe, even those conversations where I was verbally attacked were not about the war. It was just correcting the way that they were using the term Zionist, which, again, I felt like I had the relationship to do that, but clearly didn't. But I think one thing that, and perhaps can leave it on like a good note, is I do feel like during this time, it has refocused my own commitment to being really involved in the Jewish community and in building more relationships with other people in Portland and, around the world who do value the things that I value. And so I think that is one thing of it. It's been this seismic shift, but it's been a way that I've been able to really kind of reframe and think about how do I want to dedicate my time in this community, and how do I want to, be around people who believe in the things that I believe in.
Very well expressed. Thank you so much, Nicole. And yeah, I hear all those points. And who was saying here, David Stein, DEI has failed miserably over the past month. We can all have our own opinions. My opinion is that I agree very wholeheartedly with that. I feel that, I think something that we're seeing, and this is underscoring a lot of our discussions, a lot of these sessions that I'm having, but I say seismic shift, it's this idea that we in the Jewish community, we're at home in this little pocket over here, society, in terms of society. And as our friends, seemingly some of them abandon us or betray us, and some of these institutions do as well, we're wondering, where is my place as a person, as a member of the community, as a community? Where is my place? With a lot of reevaluation happening, and we're seeing some of these institutions and movements, social political movements, ideological movements that are aligning themselves, that are aligning themselves local, defining themselves here as being leftist, but we see that they're aligning themselves with, in many ways, with radical ideology in the form of Hamas and other, and ideology. Then we're like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to jive, or shouldn't, but it does. And so I think that there's a lot of, there's an article today, and I forget where it was, that had to do with time to abandon DI, and I don't remember where that was. I wanted to click on it, but I haven't had a chance today. But there's a lot of this reevaluation. And this is one of my thoughts after October 7th, was that we have to evaluate and reevaluate. Everything we thought may have been true one time, whether it was true or not at a one time or not, it is not true now. Not everything, but many things. Who are our friends? Who stood with the Jewish community, right? Who stood with me? Who stood with you? But who stood with the Jewish community? Some of them are surprising, and some of them are not surprising. But some of them are we've had friends standing with us that we may not have, we didn't expect. And like, I don't know how to connect with a person from, the right politically in the States if they're standing with me here at this time. But I value that they stand with. What do I do with that? But we need to have those conversations. We need to have the conversations about, is Jewish education serving our next generation the way it is, the way I went to school served me? Is that serving our kids today? Are we equipping them with the tools that they need? I'm going to other topics because I want to mention, as we conclude wrap up with this one, My conversation, my topic next week, and I'm trying to secure a guest for this one, is anti-Semitism on campus. Should be done in 15 minutes. No, this is a topic that you can talk for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Just, you know, Concordia University, which was another main university in Montreal, Jews were attacked for having a table with the kidnapped pictures of kidnapped kids and people by pro-Palestinians. The student union put out a message today condemning the university for putting the Palestinians at risk by having those the violence laid in the fact that the pictures were there. The pictures of innocent Jewish children was the violence towards them. So we're dealing with people that have a very different ideology that are affecting our universities and our next generation. What do we do? And I don't have every answer. Perhaps I do in my own mind, but I don't have every answer. But we need to talk about them. This is what I think we need to do. And I think Jews we need to talk about it so we understand the problem. We can reevaluate things and go, okay, we need to make a shift on this. We need to make a shift on that, or we don't stand a chance. And this goes back to what we were saying a moment ago, what this topic is all about, that circle being smaller, but stronger. I don't like being betrayed by some of these friends, but I have no compunction about losing that friendship because, as someone said, they're not friends, or as mom used to say when you're like 5 years old, that was not a real friend anyway. It hurts in some ways. It's an eye opener, but why don't you want to be with people who hold you up? Why don't you want to be with people? Don't you want to be with people who are going to see you, not diminish you, not ignore you, but see you and hear you and connect with you? And if it's Jewish, it's Jewish. If it's not Jewish, it's not Jewish. Let's build our friendships and reevaluate them. Next week, anti-Semitism on campus. In 2 weeks from now, we're not having a session because it is Thanksgiving, or as we in our family call it, American Thanksgiving. We're Canadian. And then 3 weeks, so 3 weeks from now, or 2 sessions from now, so 3 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about Jewish education, reevaluating Jewish education. And I have a very special guest on that one, Dr. Naya Lecht. She is fantastic. She comes from the she grew up in the States. She spent early youth time in the Soviet Union and moved here. I mention this because there's a different perspective, a recognition of some of the threats of certain Marxist kind of thinking, and she's part of a movement to try to I don't know if a change, but try to shift Jewish education. And that should be exciting. Thank you all for joining me in this conversation. These conversations don't have finality to them. They're ongoing. We need to grapple with this. And we need to feel okay that we are going to self-advocate and self-preserve. We need to look after ourselves. That I feel let you decide where that line is about when someone's crossed too much or not. But that idea that you need to look after yourself, you need to look after yourself. We all do. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you to Lisa Richmond for managing the event. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.